May I just tell you today that if you're in a battle right now, if you're dealing with a struggle of something, I want you to know that it is totally normal for the devil to really start attacking you and messing with you right before he knows he has to turn you loose. It's like a little child just having a temper tantrum. You know, when you try to get, have you ever taken a child in a toy store and then you try to get them out? When they know they have to leave, they will pitch a fit. And there are some things that some of you have been struggling with in your life. And the devil has got to let go of that. He's got to let go of your son, your daughter, your grandchild. He's going to pitch a fit. But the end result is that he's got to go. You will find some of the greatest demonic attack in your life right when you're getting ready to birth something that's getting ready to bless the kingdom of God. And I want you to know that something satanic and demonic will break loose in your life right when you're in line. You're the next in line for promotion. That there's always something that you have to go through. And if you can persist through that thing to be able to get to the blessing, so many people disqualify themselves. The question is can you stand to be blessed? Because if you can stand through the persecution, through the adversity, through the negativity, through the challenge, through the attack that comes into your life, that qualifies you for the blessing, there is always a Red Sea before there is a promised land. And if you can stand when you cannot see how you're going to get over this great chasm, how am I going to deal with this challenge? Every time that God gets ready to bless your life, there's going to be something that's going to pop up, a circumstance, a situation that says this thing that God has said is coming to you will never happen, and the circumstances will say, yeah, it won't happen. Look at the circumstances. And God, in His sovereignty and His grace, will defy the circumstances if you'll stand to be blessed. It really will. Turn in your Bibles, Genesis chapter 22. Genesis chapter 22. Beginning with verse 4. Genesis chapter 22 and verse 4. I know it won't take you long to find the book of Genesis. The book of beginnings. There are things that you learn in the book of Genesis that set a pattern for life. We call it the principle of first mention. And God begins to establish a pattern for particular things in life. Genesis chapter 22 verse 4. Notice this. On the third day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the two of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I, my son. And then he said, look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, my son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. So the two of them went together. And then they came to the place which God had told them, and Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order and bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, here I am. And he said, do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the thickets by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, the Lord will provide, as it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Here is where God became known as Jehovah Jireh, the Lord our provider. I want to talk for a few moments from the subject, God's secret plan B. God's secret plan B. Now I know that you've heard that God doesn't have a plan B. because his plan A always works. Well, that's why I call it his secret plan B, because most people don't know about his secret plan B. You think things are going one way, and God at the last minute will switch on you. Have you ever been in a situation where it looked like the money was not going to come, and at the last minute, anybody can testify, has anybody ever been in a last minute thing and God switched it? You didn't think you were going to be able to go on the trip. You didn't think you were going to be able to finish school. You didn't think that you were going to be able to, and at the last minute, pow, God's secret plan B. It looked like it was going to fail, like everything was going to fall through the crack, like nothing was going to work, looked like everything that you've been praying for was lost, and all of a sudden, pow, the introduction of God's secret plan B. I want to talk about that for just a few moments. You'll notice here that verse 4 reveals that Abraham saw the place afar off. That speaks of your vision. There's something that you need to see afar off. Sight is a function of the eyes, but vision is a function of the heart. There's something that you need to see afar off. Don't wait until you get up on it. You need to be able to see it afar off. There ought to be a big picture of a vision of something that you're looking at that is afar off. Say afar off. That means that you need to see it before you need it. You need to see it ahead of time. You've got to have a vision of something afar off. Don't wait till the last minute. That's what vision is all about. It shows us a place afar off so you can prepare for that place. But the problem with seeing a thing afar off is that you cannot make out the details. That's the problem with seeing anything afar off. You cannot make out the details because you're seeing it afar off. So God will speak to you concerning something, and yet he never gave you the details of the thing that he showed you because you saw it afar off. I believe that God obscures the details for us because we cannot handle it at the time. If God told you up front that the person that you were going to marry was going to put you through everything they were going to put you through, had he outlined and shown you detail by detail that at first she's going to start slacking up in her cooking, then her tongue is going to get loose on you, her attitude is going bad, she's going to roll her head, and she's going to start coming back at you, and you know that this does work both ways. And if he showed you, ladies, that he's going to cheat on you, I mean, if he showed you way back then he's going to stop opening doors for you, that he's going to start telling you, you know, while you're going in there, bring me some. And he started off as a wonderful gentleman, you know, serving and asking, can I get anything? Yes, dear, do you need anything else? Had he shown you all of the details of how things would degenerate over time, and had he shown you how long you were going to have to pray to believe God to do a turnaround in his life, had you known in advance how long you were going to have to wait for God to do what you needed him to do in him, in her, you wouldn't have signed up for it. So God has to say, you know what? I can't show him all this up front. I'm going to let him see it afar off. He obscures the details. Now, one of my brothers, whom name I will not call, but he was down in one of my places down in Panama City Beach. He looked out of the window and saw 3 fine women walking on the beach. And he hurried and put on his swimming trunks so that he could go out there. He was single at the time. And so he hurried and put on his swimming trunks so he could get out there, and ran to the elevator and went downstairs, got out on the beach, and found all 3 of these fine women strolling the beach in their bathing suits. And when he got down there, he noticed all 3 of them were ugly. He couldn't see the details from the room. All he saw was fineness strutting on the beach times 3. But he couldn't see the details. And when he got down there on the beach close enough to see the details, all 3, though fine, were ugly. Now, I know it's not nice to call any of God's creatures ugly. I do understand that. But I'm just giving you a picture so that you can understand. That is a very true story. It's very true. So, there are some things that you would never approach if God showed you all of the details afar off. There's some things that you just have to just get up on them. It's like, I didn't know you were crazy like this. I didn't know you were rolling like, I didn't know that you had all this drama in you. I never knew. You see, what'll happen is that you'll see somebody hitching a ride in relationship with you. And they're standing out on the corner showing a little leg, trying to get picked up. And as soon as you stop to pick them up, they go from behind the bushes and start bringing out all of their baggage. Because you didn't realize they had all of that stuff with them because you saw it afar off. So whenever you're trying to pursue something, I don't care whether it is a business that you start, you will never see all of the ramifications of the issues and things that you're dealing with. When you try to change the world, make a difference, become politically involved, and you feel that I'm going to come in here and I'm going to clean this city up, when you get in there and discover the level of corruption and how long and the good old boy system and all of these different things, a startling reality. There are certain things that we never would have attempted had God shown us all of the details. Had He shown you everything that you were going to deal with trying to raise a child. Had He shown you everything that you were going to deal with trying to launch a business, with trying to start a ministry, with trying to launch a particular career in this way. Had He shown you how hard it was going to be, the disappointment, that it was going to take you longer than you estimated and cost you more than you anticipated. I mean, once you see all of that stuff from afar, you never see those details, and sometimes you'll come to the conclusion that this thing will never happen. Well, I guess it'll just never work for me. And this is where Abraham was. He's in a situation where he believed God all of the days of his life. God didn't give him a promise until he was 75. It took him till he was nearly 100 in order to see that promise fulfilled in his life. And here now, he's got his son about 13 years old. And he's going up to sacrifice the very thing that he has lived for and believed for all of the days of his life. And it looks like it is slipping through his fingers. Have you ever been in a place where the very thing that you have believed God for and trusted Him for and labored for and given birth to, and it looks like you're going to lose it? All of the signs say you're going to lose it. All of the signs say foreclosure. They say repossession. They say delinquent. They say prison term. All of the signs say that the very thing that you have believed me for is going to be lost in your life. And yet God, listen, don't ever count Him out until the fat lady sings. When God gets ready to bless you, He's got a plan, a secret plan B. And really, I'd have to say it this way in all honesty, that God's secret plan B was His concealed plan A. He really only has a plan A. We call it plan B because we had a plan A that didn't work. Plan B was God's all alone. It was His plan A. He knew that it would work. But He couldn't show us His secret plan A because we were so fixated on ours. And here was Abraham so fixated on his plan A, Isaac. He was so fixated on losing Isaac that he could not see God's plan A, which was the ram caught in the thickets. And the thing about it is that the ram was not put in the thickets the moment that his son Isaac got on the altar. It was there all the time. He just couldn't see it because he was fixated on what he was losing. And when you are fixated on what you are losing, you lose sight on what God has already blessed you with. And so I call it unrecognized resources. There are unrecognized resources all around you. The real treasures of God are always hidden. You don't find diamonds just lying around on the ground. They are buried. You find petroleum, ore, buried in the earth. I meant platinum, buried in the earth. Silver, buried. Gold, buried. Every bit of treasure that is in the earth is buried in the earth. It must be unearthed. So it's there. There is beauty in your husband, beauty in your wife. You have to unearth it. You have to remove the dirt. God has given you a treasure. And if you are cynical in your mindset, you will be looking at a human being that is a gift from God and distracted by their dirt. When God is saying, listen, I want you to be able to take the precious out of the vial. There is something precious in them. I want you to find the gem in them despite their tongue. There's a golden heart that is there. And if you can look over the smartness of their tongue, God says, I will give you a real gem. I'll change how they are able to be a blessing to you, just as you are able to see the treasure that I have buried. There's something right where you are complaining about what you are losing. There is a hidden blessing right in your house. There's something right under your nose. And when you don't recognize it, you can't use it. If you cannot see it, you cannot seize it. And so Abraham couldn't take advantage of the ram in the thickets because he couldn't see it, but it was there. Either God is Jehovah Jireh, the Lord our provider, or he is not. But I am just convinced in my own heart that God is a provider. I believe that we just have a problem seeing his provision. You never ever have a lack of money. You only have a lack of vision for how to get it. You never have a lack of money. It's vision. Provision comes for vision. If you lack provision, you lack the sufficiency of strategy in vision for getting the provision. Provision only comes for vision. And when we are running short on provision, we think provision is the problem. It's not provision, it is vision that is the problem. Vision is the thing that produces provision. When you talk about vision, provision will begin to come. God sends provision for the vision. Jesus was a vision that was in the mind of God that became a reality. So when he was birthed in the earth, guess what? God started wise men from the east coming, bringing provision, gold, frankincense, myrrh. It's a crazy baby shower gift, isn't it? To bring gold. Gold is money. Money for a vision. They were seeing a vision. When you get a vision big enough, Walt Disney took a vision of that whole enterprise that he built. He sold people a vision. Folks invested in his vision. Provision came because of his vision. If you lack provision in any area of your life, it's a vision issue. It is a vision issue. And there's something around you where the Lord has already provided. It is already under your nose. There is an unused talent, unused potential, untapped ability in your life. It's right there because we are fixated on what's being lost on the altar. I'm about to lose my car, about to lose my house, I'm about to lose my job, about to lose this. But what do you have left? If you will stop to look around, because not everything is on the altar. And may I tell you, there are the things that are not on the altar that can revolutionize your life. Not everything is on the altar that God wants to bless you with. May I just tell you, you don't just look within yourself, look around. You look around. That you look every place. Look beneath, because treasure is buried. Look beneath you. Look beside you. Look behind you. What is it that I have learned from my past that I'm able to use right now? Look in every direction. You look within, you look beside, you look behind your vision, you look before, and then you look up toward God. You better look in every direction, because there is a supernatural divine provision. It is caught like a ram in the thickets for you. It's not going anywhere. It's caught, waiting on you to recognize it. And the moment that we quit squalling and crying, whining, belly aching, and griping over what we are losing, because God does not inhabit the gripes and the complaints of his people. God inhabits the praises of his people. So if you have lost something, you ought to be like Job, that said, naked came I into the world, naked am I going to go out. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And when you're like that and have that kind of attitude, even if you cannot see the blessing at the moment, because all 10 of your children are dead, and all of your cattle are dead, and all of your servants are gone, and if you can't see anything, but when God is still with you, if you'll trust him, he'll give you double for your trouble. And God blessed him. The latter end of Job, God switched it. It was God's plan B. God said, I want to get more to you than you've ever had all of the days of your life. And God says, I've got a plan to purge your life. I'm going to purge your life. I'm going to cut you back, and it's going to look like you're losing. But you always go backwards before you go forward. In the business world, they understand that. We call it sampling. You got to give them a little something. You got to give in order to get. I mean, you sow and then you reap. It is that. And so if the devil tells you that what goes in as seed, that's going in as a seed into your life, it is an investment. Every time you sow a seed, you are scheduling a harvest. You're scheduling a harvest. You are scheduling a harvest. You better look and realize that the earth around you is laden with seeds. I see that some of the most giving people that have blessed so many people all of the days of their life, they've given their last to people. And they don't realize that they're now destitute themselves, and the very people that they have given to have no ability to give to them. But the thing that you realize is that he that gives to the poor lends to the Lord. And that the earth all around you has been sown with seed, and God's getting ready to send the rain. And let me remind you of this principle, that God does not send rain where there is no seed. He does not send rain where there is no seed. That's why it doesn't rain in the desert, because nobody sows seed there. God sends rain for seed so that it will force the seed in the earth to germinate, to open up. If you want a shower of God's blessing in your life, there's a seed that must be sown into your life. And this is what Abraham was doing. He was sowing the seed of his son, and God allowed him to reap from the ram in the thickets that he did not plant. When you plant what's in your hand, God will give you what's in his heart. And this ram, I want you to understand that this ram was God's secret plan B. It was God's secret plan B. This ram is a type of Jesus the Christ. When we have to put our own sons, our own selves on the altar to try to pay for our own sins, and at the last minute, he who knew no sin became sin for us and switched, got into God's secret plan B, but it was God's plan A all along, because the Bible says in Revelation that he was slain from the foundations of the earth. It was already in the plan. It wasn't a surprise to God that Judas betrayed him and he wound up on a cross. That was God's plan all along. We thought that because we could do it with doves and pigeons, that we would be able to appease God, and the blood of goats and sheep. That was man's plan. God's plan was always through the shedding of blood. Man tried to bring fig leaves to cover his nakedness of his sin, and God said, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. God said, my plan from the very beginning was that blood would have to be shed, that the very stuff that you try to produce to cover yourself would be inadequate, would not appease me whatsoever, that it had to be a blood sacrifice. Where there is no shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. And so we realize that God would so come into our lives and touch us and cleanse us by his own power, when he would introduce to us his secret plan B. Isn't it good to know that God has a plan B for your life that you didn't recognize was there? May I just tell you that the provision of the Lord will be seen in your life if you'll take heed to his voice. This was the great criterion to seeing the provision of God, is that he had to take heed to the voice of God. And there are too many times that because we are so dogmatic on doing it the way that we used to do it, that we will proceed and stab and kill what was on the altar because we didn't take hold of the voice of the Lord that called his name when he raised his hand to slay it and he said, Abraham! Abraham! God knew that he could trust Abraham to instantly obey him. There are some of us that are so slow that it takes us 2 hours to watch 60 minutes. But God called Abraham, Abraham, and he could stop him mid-stroke. And he would stop instantly to obey God. It was his willingness to obey the voice of God that brought God's divine provision to him. Had he never heeded the voice, he would have never been seated the blessing. So when you heed God's voice, God is seeding a blessing. Every time you obey the voice of God, look around. Look around, because there is a blessing connected to obedience. You cannot do by sacrifice what can only be done by obedience. God's plan was never for sacrifice. It was for obedience. His word declares to us, obedience is far better than sacrifice. It was never God's plan, really. That was man's plan. God's plan A was obey me and I will bless you. And he gave us in Deuteronomy chapter 28 all of these incredible blessings that would overtake us if we would obey him. Obey him. But nearly 3 times the curses would come on our lives if we disobeyed him. And so with every obedience to the voice of God, there is a blessing there. Look for God's divine provision every time you've obeyed God. If you've obeyed God in tithes, look for a blessing. If you've obeyed God's voice in raising your children, look for a blessing. If you've obeyed him with your spouse, look for a blessing. There is a blessing in always heeding the voice of God to do that which is right. When you do that which is right, there is an inherent blessing that is connected to your obedience to God. And I just encourage you that when you're in that place, that the provision of the Lord will be seen in your life when you take heed to his voice. A better substitute is being given to you. The thing that has been denied is going to be approved. The diagnosed condition is going to disappear. What you birthed will be replaced with what God provides. And let me just tell you this for some individuals, that the verdict will be changed. Because God's secret plan B was to bring us into something that he had simply withheld from us the whole time. And if you just obey his voice, when you lift up your eyes, you'll be able to see God's provision. You wouldn't know why God had you doing what you were doing until you obey his voice. And it is in retrospect that you're able to look back and now understand why you couldn't compromise like everybody else was compromising. Why you couldn't cheat. Why you couldn't do this. You'll understand why other folks were even getting away with it. And have you ever been in a place where you said, Lord, I don't understand how you can let this one do that and this one, and if I do any little thing, God, you just seem like you just whip me, you just beat me, you just like I'm paying the penalty for it before I can get home good. But when you obey what God tells you to do, God is not going to lock your blessing up in the heart of anybody else. Your blessing is tied to your obedience to God. And I'm here to tell you that when God tells you, stay your hand, if you will obey God, there is a divine supernatural provision. The supernatural provision of God is connected to the word that God speaks to you when he calls your name. When he calls you, he's not calling you for chit-chat. God is calling you to let you know that I have called you by your name. When I call you, there is something that I'm going to put in you or something that I'm going to take away from you. I'm going to provide for you. I came to remind you today that God is a provider. God's secret plan B was to make provision for the very thing that you thought you couldn't live without. And when you thought that you couldn't make it without a spouse, God says, you know what? I had my will already set. My secret plan B, which was my plan A, was for you to trust me and depend on me from the beginning. I never wanted you to put your confidence in another human being. God's saying, I wanted you to trust me. I didn't want you to trust the system. I wanted you to trust me. Trust me. God's secret plan B, if you'll obey his voice, you will see the ram that is caught in the thicket. Because things don't always work out the way that you have planned it out in your mind. It's not going to, I don't care how elaborate you try to dream and envision particular thing. God has a divine switch at the last minute when you really get blessed by God. I've had the wonderful privilege of being with some incredibly blessed people. And one of the questions that I will always ask them is, did you ever think that you will be in the place where you are today? And without variation, none of them have ever said, I'm right where I planned for myself to be. No. It exceeded their expectations. They realized this was not the work of my own human ingenuity. This thing became bigger than anything that I could ever imagine myself doing. They realized that if you'll ever be honest with yourself, when the blessings of God come, if God makes your reputation bigger than what you could do by yourself through human marketing, it is a work of God. God will switch and give you something, even when you thought that if you just give me this, God. You better be glad that God didn't give you what you first asked for because you was too small. You better thank God that he didn't bless you with the very first person that you thought you fell in love with. Because you see them today and they are jacked up. You better thank God that God totally ignored you. And your plan A failed, but God's secret plan B, which was his plan A all along, if you'll just listen to him when you're frantically trying to do it your way, and if you will just listen to God calling your name, stopping you, saying, Angela, John, Henry. If you just listen to God calling you, there are some things we're getting ready to make tragic mistakes, and if you listen to the voice of God, Michael, and if you'll learn and train yourself to instantly obey God, not only will he stop you from destroying what you birthed, he will provide what only he could provide supernaturally. Right at the right time, he lets the blessing come right in the nick of time. In a kairos moment, right when the doctors had said that it's time. My own mother was prepped for surgery to have a tumor removed from her body. She'd confessed when she had my brother Bernard, and she then had my brother Daryl a year later, and then she had me a year later. And so people had seen her 3 years in a row just pregnant, and they would say, girl, you haven't had that baby yet? And they didn't realize it was a different baby. So my mother started saying, she said, baby, this ain't nothing but an old tumor. So when I was born, she had a tumor in her uterus. That tumor grew in mama's body for 20-something years. I went over and prayed with mama on a Friday. She was scheduled for surgery that Monday. She went to the hospital that Monday. They prepped her, they did the sonogram to try to determine the size and location of it. After all of that time, mama never would let the doctors, the gynecologists, take it out. Because she confessed all of those years, I just believe God's going to heal me. I believe God's going to heal me. I believe God's going to heal me. And it grew in Mama's body for 20 odd years. When she got ready to go to be prepped for surgery to locate it, they couldn't find it. Surgery was canceled. It's amazing. It was God's secret plan B, but it was his plan A all along, of saying, I got healing for you that you know not of. And you may think that it's the surgeon's knife, but God switched it. Said, I'm not willing to share my glory. Not this time. You confessed for 20 odd years that I would heal you, and he stopped the mid-stroke, Robbie, and canceled the surgery. May I just tell you that there are some things that God's getting ready to cancel. If you receive it prophetically, I mean that. He's going to cancel it and supernaturally, divinely provide. And you're going to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that God is my provider. I didn't have the ability to do it. I didn't have the advertising budget. God alone, because I obeyed his voice. If you'll ever obey God, he'll send you the help that money cannot even buy. God will give you favor. God will give you influence with things that you couldn't get yourself. And there's some things that you've counted yourself out, and it looks like it's going to be lost, but at the last minute you'll hear a voice from God. Stay your hand. Stay your hand. And when you stay your hand, you'll see his hand. You be still and know that he is God.